His final command lingered in the air, leaving no room for resistance. Everything they had witnessed here was to be forgotten. The child and his companions walked through the gate, secured by the Chivalry Guild. In the cold, eerie void beyond, a massive beast lay still, its body marked by the wounds inflicted by the child's companions. Before it, a presence loomed, a child standing firm, exuding an air of absolute authority. There was no sympathy in his gaze, only cold understanding. He recognized the pain of the creature, the rage boiling within it after losing everything, and so he offered it a chance, a release. The beast would be allowed to run wild, to unleash its fury upon another world. While it drowned in its destruction, he would continue his investigation, seeking to fulfill the will of his creator. Meanwhile, at the airport, the tension in the air was palpable. The dungeon gate flickered ominously, mana surging from within. The hunters of the Chivalry Guild watched closely, their expressions grim. The energy pouring out was undeniable. A dungeon break was imminent. If the boss inside was not eliminated in time, the destruction would be catastrophic. Given the gate's location, the airport and everything around it would suffer immense damage. Then, a single decision changed everything. Without hesitation, the guild members acknowledged the child's orders. They would report to the Hunters Association that there was no problem. A crack echoed through the air, followed by a deafening roar. The dungeon break had begun. Monstrous figures spilled out of the gate one by one. Yet, as chaos erupted, the child and his companions merely stood and watched. His thoughts were clear, unwavering. Creations existed only for one purpose: to fulfill the will of their creator. If their god wished for battles, they would wage war against one another. If their god desired something, they would obtain it by any means necessary. Their existence had no meaning beyond that purpose. Everything changed when their creator, the one they called God, spoke. A revelation shook their existence. A being of their kind had perished in another dimension. It was an unthinkable event, something that should never have been possible. And with that, a command was given. Following the will of their creator, the apostle and his kind gathered countless believers, forming an army devoted to a holy mission. They embarked on a crusade to claim the world without a master, determined to fulfill their god's decree. However, the journey itself was a test of endurance. An unimaginable amount of energy was required to transport the vast army across dimensions. The greater one's power, the narrower the passage through which they could travel, making the transition even more difficult. The army of God pressed forward, undeterred by the eons spent within the dimensional passage. Time lost meaning as they persevered through the endless void, driven solely by their divine purpose. Eventually they arrived at their destination, the world abandoned by its ruler. But what awaited them was not an empty land ripe for conquest. It was darkness. An abyss stretched before them, endless and consuming. It was not just the absence of light, but a force beyond comprehension. Within this abyss, an entity existed, a being known only as darkness, and surrounding him was a legion of creatures wielding unimaginable power. The army of God had faced countless foes before, but this was unlike anything they had ever encountered. The true terror of darkness revealed itself during battle. Each fallen soldier of God did not simply die. They were consumed by the abyss. Their very essence was corrupted, turning them against their former comrades. As the war raged on, every loss only strengthened the enemy, while the army of God steadily weakened. What had begun as a mission of conquest quickly spiraled into a desperate struggle for survival. The battle in the world without a master was short-lived. Overwhelmed, the army of God was soon pushed into an outside dimension, forced to retreat as the tide of war turned against them. Despair settled upon them as they realized the truth. They could not defeat darkness. Their divine strength was not enough. Amid this hopelessness, an envoy named Tiel proposed a new strategy. The darkness had left the world without a master to pursue them, and just as their passage had been difficult, it would not be easy for him to return. There was an opportunity, a way to claim the world in a different manner. Tiel had observed something vital. The life forms of this abandoned world did not possess mana. With the right method, they could conquer it from within. A plan was formed, one that would reshape their approach to war. Instead of direct confrontation, they would use the mist burns, a method that would allow them to seize control without the need for a full-scale battle. The weakest believers, those who had devoted themselves entirely to the will of God, even as their minds crumbled, became tools of divine purpose. Known as the mist burns, they were set alight by holy fire. Their powers were insignificant, yet their explosive spread of faith had a devastating effect on beings without mana. The army of God saw an opportunity. If belief in their cause took root in the world without a master and the number of followers grew, they would be able to manifest a sanctuary. And from that sanctuary, a miracle could be born. With this understanding, the army of God fully embraced Tiel's strategy. Without hesitation, Tiel divided his power into 5 fragments, each carrying sharing a portion of his abilities. The weakest among them carried the embers of the Mistburns, and was the first to set foot in the world without a master. Its presence went unnoticed by the darkness, allowing it to infiltrate the foreign dimension without interference. However, something unexpected awaited the fragment. The beings of this world, who were supposed to be devoid of mana, had gained it. This revelation shattered previous assumptions. The fragment soon discovered that the emergence of mana was linked to an event known as the Cataclysm, a phenomenon that had reshaped the very foundation of this world.